Hello and welcome to Maths and Science Tutorials channel. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll be assisting you with your mathematics and your physical sciences studies on this channel, where we'll be focusing on test papers, exam papers, as well as doing tutorials lessons. They will be short and some will be long. So I hope you'll be able to benefit here so that you can do well in your studies, improve or maintain the good marks. Thank you so much. So this is a question paper from 2022 this year. It's revision for the June exams. So it says Maths Paper 1 2022 May or June test. So I'm not quite sure if it's a test or an exam because on the main page it is written a test. So please do tell me if it was a test or an exam. I'll appreciate that in the comment section below. Thank you so much. So let us begin without any delays. So the first question here, question 1, it says solve for x. We're going to start off with this question here. So what are the factors of 15? The factors of 15 are 5 times 3 and also 5 times 1. So we need those factors that when we add together or subtract, they give us this number, the 2x. Only 5 and 3 can give us a 2x. 5 minus 3, it's 2. So we are going to use these factors because 15 minus 1, we can only get a 14. That's the minimum value we can get. So let us go with 5 and 3. Five and 3. So now, what are going to be the signs here? So the middle term is positive, as you can see here, it's plus 2x. So the bigger number takes the sign of the middle term. Now, the 15 has to be negative. So we multiply the 3 with the negative there. Because you'll get a 5x minus 3x, which will give you the middle term 2x. And the negative 5 times 5 times negative 3 times 5 gives you a negative 15. So our answer now is that is equals to 0, or x plus 5 equals to 0. Therefore, final answer is x is equals to 3 or x is equals to negative 5. Then you scoop your 3 marks there. The next question, 1.1.2, we're given this equation here in standard form. It says leave your answer correct to 2 decimal places. So here we have to use this equation to solve. So let us see, the value of a is 5 and the value of b is negative 1. The value of c is negative 9. So let us substitute into this equation to see what our answers are. That's negative b, which is a negative 1, plus or minus negative 1 all squared minus 4. A is 5, c is negative 9. That's the square root there, all divided by 2a, which is 5. Okay, so I'll have to move this part here so that we have clearer. We're working with the need, we're working neatly. Let's see. So now we're going to use the calculator here. Okay, so let us do that. Clear. So we have this part here, negative open bracket negative 1. We're going to start with the plus, and then we take the square root, open bracket negative 1 all squared minus 4. A is 5, c is negative 9, divide by 2 times 5. We get this number, so which I would like to convert to decimal places. Okay, there is the answer in decimal places. Alright, so x is 1,45. Remember, the instructions want us to solve to 2 decimal places, or x equals to, now we're going to check for the -1 here, delete, minus, then we get -1,25. so we are done with this one. You also get your full 3 marks there for finding the answers here. So the answer here was x equals 1,45 or x equals to -1,25. So finally, let's solve this one. 1,1.3. We are given that x squared is less or equals to 3x. So how do we solve this one? It's an inequality. We bring the 3x to the left hand side. It changes sign to become -3x is less or equals to 0. And then now we factorize x minus 3 is less or equals to 0. Okay, so now we're going to look for the critical values, the values that make this inequality equals to 0. So the critical values, we're looking for the values of x that make this equation equals to 0. So what are those values? X equals to 0 or x minus 3 equals to 0. So which means on the other side it's x. These are the critical values, x is equals to 3 or x is equals to 0. So now we are going to use our critical values to solve this inequality here. So there are 2 ways to solve for this. You can either use a number line or you can use the graphical method. So I'm going to quickly do both of them. The number line, we have 0 here and we have 3 here, and we are going to test random numbers that are less than 0, between 0 and 3, and greater than 3. So less than 0 we can try -1, between 0 and 3 we can try 1, above 3 we can try 5. So let us see what happens when we substitute these numbers into the inequality here, into this equation here, the quadratic expression. So now when we substitute for -1, we get -1 all squared minus 3 times -1, which gives us 1 plus 3. That's a positive 4. So here we get a positive, and if we try out 1 squared minus 3 times 1, it gives us 1 minus 3, which is -2. That's a negative. And then if we try out 5 squared minus 3 times 5, we get 25 minus 15, which gives us a 10, and that is a positive. And remember, here in the inequality sign, we're looking for the values of x such that this inequality here is less or equals to 0. So our answer therefore lies from 0 up to 3, in between here. So our answer, we are also including 0 and 3, because if we substitute for 0 and for 3, we get a 0, which the inequality here it's less or equals to. So our answer therefore is like this, between 0 and 3. So if we were to use the graphical method, what we would have to do is draw a quadratic function from the x squared minus 3x. So since we have x squared minus 3x as the quadratic function, so the a value there is greater than 0, which is basically positive, so this is a smiley face. So the graph would look like this, and its roots lie here. The roots, we've just calculated them, which are the critical values there, 0 and 3. So this is the x-axis. So we are looking for values of x such that this quadratic function, the quadratic graph, is below or equals to 0. So basically it's below the x-axis and also equals to 0, the roots of the x-axis there. So this is the area where the graph is below the x-axis, below the 0 line, because the x-axis is where y is equals to 0. So the answer here, we still get the same answer as when you're using the number line. Thank you. So now we're going to go to the next question. Question 1.2. So 1.2, it says given a plus 64 all over a equals to 16, solve for a. So that's 1.2. Question 1.2, let me just quickly do this. Copy this question and paste it here. There we have it. So now let us solve for the first question, 1.2.1. Solve for a. So if that 64 over a equals to 16, I'm going to multiply throughout by a. Every time here I'm going to multiply it by a so that I can remove this denominator here. Okay, so when we do that, we get a squared plus, so let me just multiply there. So here we are left with 64. On the right hand side we have 16a. So now let's bring all the terms on one side, which is the left hand side. We have a squared minus 16a plus 64 equals to 0. Then we will have to factorize. So now, what are the factors of 64? That is 8 times 8. So, and 8 plus 8 gives us a 16. So we can solve by factorizing here. The factors of 64, it's 8 times 8, and 8 plus 8 can give us a 16, the middle term there. So to get a negative 16, we'll have to subtract, obviously. Minus 8 gives us a negative 16. So we have a here to get the a squared, and for the 64 we have an 8 times an 8, and the middle term has a negative value there. So, and 64 is positive, so we need another negative here. And when we solve here, we get one common answer. So we can say a minus 8 all squared, since this bracket and that bracket are similar, so we're just going to square it. Is equals to 0. Take the square roots on both sides. A minus 8 equals to 0. Then our answer is a is equals to 8. You don't have to necessarily follow these 3 steps here. You can just jump straight to saying from here you can jump straight and say a minus 8 equals to 0, a is equals to 8. That's our answer there. So this graph only touches the x-axis at one point if we were to draw a quadratic graph of this using this. Thank you. So the next question, 1.2.2, hence solve for this one here, right? So usually when they say hence, so you have to use the answer from the previous question, which is 1.2.1. And sometimes there are other ways to solve these questions without using the previous question. But let us see how we can solve this one by using the previous question there. So I'm just going to do this, copy, and paste it here. So let us solve for question 1.2.2. So we have 2 exponent x plus 2 exponent 6 minus x equals to 16. How many marks does this question have? It only has 3 marks. So let us see how we can solve this question. So we are going to try to rewrite it in this form here that you see on 1.2, the one that we just solved in question 1.2.1. So do this, that times that, negative x equals to 16. We have 2 exponent x plus 2 to the power of 16. What is 2 to the power of 16? It should be 64. So this is the same as 64 divided by 2 to the power of x. Rewriting this one, bringing it to the denominator, the exponent changes sign from negative to a positive. So that is equal to 16. So now can you see that this equation now has the same form as the equation that we just solved, a plus 64 over a, which is equal to 16. So which means a in this case is, my apologies, so it's the same as that. So which means the solutions to this question now are the same solutions that we obtained in this question 1.2.1, which were what? It was just 8. So which means we can use from question 1.2.1, we can say that a, the solution of my apologies, not the solution of a, the solution of this part here, 2x equals to 8 as well from the previous solution. So we just have to solve for the value of x in this case. 2 to the power of x equals to 2 to the power of 3, right? So now that we have the same basis here, we can equate the exponents. So the value of x is 8. That's the answer to this question. Now let us go to the next question. The last question, which is, it's not necessarily the last question, so we still have to do 1.3 and 1.4. So I'm just going to quickly do a copy and paste here. So that we can work out the solutions to these questions here. So for 1.3, I'll rewrite the question clearly for you. So that's 2 to the exponent 1002 plus 2 1006 all divided by 17 times 2 to the power of 998. So we have to solve for this one. So the key to solving these types of problems is to try to have the same exponential term in the numerator and the denominator. So in this case, we will take the lowest. We can decide to use the lowest number here, which is 998. We can convert all these numbers to 998. This term here, and this term here, and this term here. Or you can convert it to another number so that we can eventually cancel them to simplify here. So let us convert to 2 to the power of 998 and see what we get when we do that. So I'll just have to rewrite each term so that it has the 2 to the power of 998. So this one here, it will be 2998 plus, I have to add 4, the 1002, and it's 998 plus 4, then plus the next one 998, I have to add an 8 to it, so that 998 plus 8 gives you 1006, then divide by 17 times 2 to the power of 998. So Now we just have to simplify further by making sure that at the end we factorize the 2998. So let us factorize. Before we factorize, I'll write it in this form: 998 times 2 to the power of 4 plus 2 to the exponent 998 times 2 to the power of 4 divided by 17 times 2 to the power of 998. So now I can factorize the 998 so that I can divide to cancel them together. So on the top part we have 998 common on both terms, so we are left with 2 times 4 plus 2 to the power of 8. So it appears as though, my apologies, I've made a mistake here. That's an 8 there. So now we divide by 17 times 2, 998. So what's going to happen now is that this cancel, and then all we are left with is for us to just simplify this part here. So we are left with 2 to the power of 4 plus 2 to the power of 8 divided by 17. So if we use our calculator there, clear. So 2 to the power of 4 gives us a 16 plus 2 to the power of 8, it gives us a 256, all divided by 17. And now 16 plus 256 gives us 272. 272 divided by 17, and if we divide the 272 by 17, we get, oops, my apologies there, it's 272 divided by 17, we get 16. So the square root of 16 is simply 4. So the answer to this question was 4. The answer to this question here is equals to 4. And the last question, the simultaneous equation here. So this one, the simultaneous equation 1.4. So for x and y simultaneously. So let us see if we can quickly solve this one. So we have 2x minus y equals to 2, and we also have 1 over x minus 3y equals to 1. So this is equation 1, and this one is equation 2. So now we're from equation 1, we're going to make y the subject of the formula, because it will be easy to make y the subject of the formula instead of x. So let us do that. 2x minus y equals to 2. Bring the negative y to the right hand side and this 2 to the left hand side. So we have 2x minus 2 equals to y. So now let me rewrite it properly. That's 2x minus 2. We will call this equation 3. So now what we're going to do is substitute equation 3 into equation 1 into into equation 2. So we've already used equation 1, so we are done with it, this one. So now we need to use equation 2. So let us see what happens when we substitute that. So it's 1 over x minus 3 times y, which is 2x, which is the same as 2x minus 2 from equation 3, all equals to 1. So now let me expand the brackets there. It's 3 times 2, it gives us minus 6x, negative 3 times negative 2 plus 6 minus 1 equals to 0. So I brought this one to the left hand side. So before I multiply with x throughout, I'm just going to simplify that. That is minus 6x plus 5 equals 0. Multiply throughout by x. Then we get 1 minus 6x squared plus 5x equals 0. So now I'll have to divide by negative throughout, or we can just say we are moving all these terms to the right hand side. So we have 6x squared minus 5x minus 1. So let us see if we can factorize this one. So well, luckily, let's start with the 6x squared here. The factors of 6x squared is, the factors of 6 is what? 6 times 1 and also 3 times 2. Correct? So 3 plus 2 can give us a 5, and 6 plus 1 can minus 1 can also give us a 5. So in this case, we are going to go with this option. Why? Because we need a negative here. So we're going to have a positive and a negative so that we can get this negative 1. So which means we have to subtract in order to get a 5. Only 6 minus 1 can give us a 5. 3 minus 2, it can't give us a 5. So let me erase this negative and the positive. So now we have 6x times x. The factors of the c value, which is negative 1, is just 1 and 1. So now which one gets the positive and which one gets the negative? So 6, the one that will give us a 6x, because 6x times 1 is 6x. So this has to be negative so that this 5 can become a negative. And then this one is positive, so we'll get a negative 6x plus x, which will give us the middle term, negative 5x. So I'll erase this part here. Now, so which means our solutions are 6x plus 1 equals 0, or x minus 1 equals 0. In this case, 6x equals to negative 1, so x equals to negative 1 divided by 6, or x equals to 1. So these are our x values. Now we are going to look for our y values. Sorry about that. So we are going to use equation 3 here. This equation 3, which is y equals to 2x minus 2. To find the y values, y equals to 2x minus 2. So that minus 2, when we substitute into the calculator, what do we get? 2 times negative 1. My apologies, let me clean up here. So 2 times negative 1 over x minus 2, we get negative 7 divided by 3, and this one here, 2 times 1 minus 2, that is 0. So these are our solutions to this Martinez equation. We have negative 1 over 6 and negative 7 over 3. From this side we have 1 and 0, if we wanted to write in coordinate form. So if you're not confident about your answers, you just want to verify if these are correct, we will substitute back into the original question. We can we can use this one to test, or you can also use this one. So let us go with this one and see if we get that answer when we substitute. If those solutions satisfy these equations, one of these equations. So let us quickly test here. So using these points here, we have on the left hand side we have 1 divided by negative 7 over 3 minus 3 times, my apologies, I've made an error here. It's 1 divided by x, and the value of x, it's negative 1 over 6 minus 3 times negative 7 over 3. Let us use a calculator and see if we get that answer. So that is 1 divided by negative 1 divided by 6 minus 3 times negative 7 divided by 3, and there we go, we get 1, which is equal to the right hand side. So and if we were to test out the second coordinates, which we don't need to do, the second set of values, it will be the left hand side equals to 1 divided by 1 minus 3 times 0. We can clearly see this is 1, which is equal to the right hand side from this equation here. So we are done with these questions. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found this lesson very helpful, and if you did indeed find it helpful, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and I'll see you next time with another video.